Good morning, everyone. Kris again here with Inspired Energy. And Hartwell is back this Wednesday morning. This morning, we're going to be having a conversation, which is quite interesting. And that is, we get this question here at Clair-i-tea all the time because, well, should I do astrology or should I do human design? And what are the differences? And, you know, people are coming looking for directions. So if you join us this morning, we'll try and clarify some of that for you. Good morning, Harwell.
Good morning, Kris.
Yes. So maybe we can start off because I know you're a systems person and you can tell us a little bit about your experience in each of the two and how you got into them.
Sure. Um, well, I was in my early teens, like 13, 14, when I began to be interested in astrology. That's when it woke up for me. And I really never stopped studying after that. Um, I've always studied astrology, all through my 20s. I began to do readings and took, books and education and chatting with others and conferences. And astrology is just deeply ingrained in the way I see the world.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, constantly studying the people around me because that's what projectors do, and I'm a projector.
Mm-hmm.
And so, constantly looking at the charts of friends and family and the people that were important to me and my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So astrology has been a constant, and to me, it's I can say more about it, but and then in 1993, I ran into human design, and this was only a few years after it first came on the scene. After it was first downloaded by Ra, which was in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very powerfully impacted by it then. It's like somebody had plugged a computer into my brain and something zapped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whoa, what is this? It just really, it ripped through me like a tsunami. I was obsessed with it for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't consistently study it after that, but I went through a period of intense study.
Mm-hmm.
And hosted courses in Vancouver, with some of the people that were, teaching it then.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of resurged for me a few years ago, and I began to study it intensively and work towards more training, more official training
Mm-hmm.
in that system. And I've been, living and breathing and studying it ever since, which is kind of what I do.
Right. So let's dig into this a little bit and maybe you can tell us astrology. What are the advantages of doing an astrology reading versus a human design reading? What are the things that astrology offers that human design doesn't go into or maybe doesn't touch on as much?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this answer in preparation for today, and it's fairly complex.
Mm-hmm.
One way to approach that question would be to talk about how it feels, because there is overlap in the systems.
Right.
If you're interested in one, you're likely to be interested in the other. What I love about astrology is that I feel that I'm looking into the mind of God. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like to me, astrology is a language, and in speaking that language, it allows you to talk about things like that you can't without astrology.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to talk about Neptune and Mercury and realize that these forces, these planets are dynamics within the reality that we exist in.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gives you the ability to talk about that and say, I'm Neptunian, this is Jupiterian, this is on a more personal level, I would say that, I feel seen by astrology, and most of the people who get astrology readings feel seen by it.
Mm-hmm.
As in, oh my God, that's freaky, that aspect says that, and that's exactly how I experience my life. So there's something about it that strengthens you because you realize that life isn't arbitrary and that you're coming into the life with these energies that are part of you and that you need to honor on some level.
Mm-hmm.
You need to honor how it is you are, so that then you can not try to be what you aren't. You know,
So then,
it's does that make sense?
so what you were saying is that um, it shows you who you are, but doesn't human design also do that? And so, like, what's the difference in how it shows you who you are between
Well,
the
that's what's tricky, Kris, to really that's what's tricky. That's what's tricky to communicate clearly, because they have a different energy about them. They both focus on uniqueness. The power, the power of human design is that it shows you exactly. It gives you a strategy for living as yourself, so that uniqueness that you know you are. Um, you're better able to access it. You've got something to do. Okay.
Mhm.
Astrology it doesn't offer really anything for you to do. So that's one of the things I love about human design. It gives you
Mhm.
saying, okay, how do I be myself in the world? This is how.
Right. But to me, so just having experienced both, one of the things that I notice is that human design can actually go deeper than astrology. So astrology may say that you are this type, you operate this way. But with human design, you can go levels deeper. So things like what we talked about earlier with the brain, like how your brain functions, whether you're right brained or left brained or a combination of, and what that means to your strategy and authority and how you're meant to move through the world, which I find astrology doesn't give us, right?
Um, yeah, not so clearly.
Mhm.
Design. You're right. As we look deeper into human design, beneath the level of the our strategy and authority, there's things like how does your brain work? How do you interact with your environment? Which are the
Mhm.
variables? There is also this sense of feeling that it is linked up with you genetically. Human design also talks about your body, because
Mhm.
the red in the body graph is your body, is your
Right.
system.
Mhm.
So it does. The entry level is to understand your strategy and authority deeply.
Mhm.
Beneath that, there are there are a lot of mechanics, and of
Right.
course, astrology is one of the four major inputs into human design. So
Mhm. Yeah.
it's basic, but it partners up with those other three systems.
And I think one of the other things that I noticed between astrology and human design, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I'm getting an astrology reading, I can then go into the future or into a certain time, and you can tell me where the planets are, what the effects are on me energetically. But human design is, this is your design, this is how you're set to be, and this is how you operate within your authority. So it's more fixed, and it's up to you to develop it, whereas you're seeing the effects of the planets with the astrology.
Very good point, Kris.
Mhm.
Human design does say this about itself. It says this is mechanical.
Mhm.
This is mechanical. This is how you're designed. You're a machine. So,
Mhm.
in a sense, trust your life to carry you along the trajectory that you need to go at.
Right.
Astrology is about cycles. It says we are part of these grand cycles that are playing themselves out in our lives, and they have universal effects, and we can see them reflected through the way society, the stressors that are showing up in societal events. But more personally, you can see when the periods of opportunity are for you through
Mhm.
astrology. And I think that it does, in my mind, it does that better than human design. It's like saying, this is going to be a period of strong stress for you for 2 years. And this
Mhm.
is going to be the theme of that stress.
Yes.
And that can be really useful and
Right.
comforting too.
Well, it's like when you talk about going through your second Saturn return or your Saturn return, right? You know that that's an intense period. But
Yes.
I think if you were to get both readings, like, you know what I mean, then well, my way of operating is this. I'm going to be faced with these energies at this point in time in my life. How do I manage that? So it gives you tools to be able to manage what's coming at you.
It does. It does. And I mean, obviously, I've made a study of both these systems, but I wouldn't want to be without one. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I like them both. And you know, if you come to me for a astrology reading, you will find that the language feels different. It feels more
Mm-hmm.
psychological. It feels more intimate in some ways. It
Right.
feels more, you know, it feels more. It has a different feel to it, and so it could potentially appeal to, depending on your own, the way you view the world. One could seem more
Mm-hmm.
in sync with you than the other. You know, human design seems colder,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems kind of more in your face, kind of like, oh, this is how it is.
Well,
You
because it's mechanical, what
know,
you were saying,
yeah,
right? So it's
you
very
know.
black and white, right? Yeah.
So they have the different systems have a different tone,
Mm-hmm.
and I think both tones are valuable.
Mm-hmm. So
You know,
when would you recommend astrology readings versus a human design reading? So, and like, because there's a definite difference in how they're used, right?
yeah, I would say that if you're being pressured by life,
Mm-hmm.
and like if you're feeling pressured, and that might show up mentally or emotionally or in
Mm-hmm.
terms of just what's going on in my life right now,
Mm-hmm.
astrology can be often the best check-in point for that.
Right.
Um, you know, because there are definite times, you know, astrologers have seen this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, over and over again. People will show up in our offices at a time of stress, at a time when the planetary cycles are triggering them.
Mm-hmm.
Human design, I think, if you are deeply interested in cultivating your own self-awareness and unplugging from the matrix and understanding who you are uniquely,
Mm-hmm.
um, then human design is going to be give you the things that you need.
Yeah, I
So
think it makes you stop beating yourself up for things that are just innately you, and
yes,
then shows you a way to, it gives you the strategy, right? And authority to operate as you're meant to. So you go, oh, well, I'm not quite there. But it out, like for me personally, because you know this, right? When we talked about, being right brained and left brained, that was such a relief for me because I kept thinking I was doing everything wrong and I wasn't, retaining this information, but I'm not built to do that. So that
yeah.
was like a huge relief for me. Um, and it just empowered me more to understand how I operated. Yeah.
Well, I think in this time in human history, the idea of being unique is finding its place in the world. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not enough now to know that we are unique. We need to know how, and we
Well,
need
for,
to know how to show up in the world so that we can be strong as we are.
mhm.
Because we can't be strong trying to be something that we're not.
Well, and we also can't affect change effectively, right? Which is what the world needs right now. We need to shift and change and become more of who we are so that we can make the world the place that it was meant to be instead of this competitive, you know, consumeristic world, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the world needs Kris to be Kris and nothing
Mm-hmm.
else. You know,
Yes.
the world needs me to be me and no one else.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only do that powerfully if I understand certain things about myself.
Right.
It's, I mean, of course, you know, the Creator God, you know, all our gifts are present all the time, every moment. You know, we move through the world as ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like if you never saw human design or astrology that you couldn't discover or figure out how to operate as yourself. But
Mm-hmm. But they're tools that
we
can
have these
help you get
tools and
there
we're not
quicker.
using them,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because they are going to for somebody who really wants to peek beneath peek behind the curtain and understand themselves, why wouldn't you want to understand this about yourself?
Yeah. But then we get into the whole conversation about shadows and people not wanting to face their shadows and thinking that their shadows are bad. But sometimes our shadows are actually what we're meant to embrace and use. And as long as you use them properly, they are the tools, right?
Well,
So,
this is something that you can't get away from that understanding, Kris,
yeah.
which is exactly right. And astrology and human design both force us to see that your challenges are not something to be avoided.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually the doorway into the unfoldment of your greatest gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to embrace your shadow. You have to embrace those things because they're simply low vibration reflections of your own qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand that and stop resisting them, then you begin to raise your vibration and therefore express the gift level of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the understanding that people need to have so they quit beating themselves up, right? And just start recognizing and become aware of what those are so they can shift and change them, right?
Yes.
One of the other things that I wanted to talk about quickly here before we wrap up is, like I was discussing, the fact that in human design, there's so much more to it that I'm not quite sure people are aware of. And that is that you can go deeper into levels about, oh, what's the best environment for you to be eating or relaxing in, and what are the things that how your brain operates, what are the foods that you can eat, and you can actually go into each and every one of those gates and channels and dive deeper into them, and have like smaller readings so that if there's one that you're not quite sure about or you want to know more about, you can actually come in and do like a short 20 minute, half an hour reading and delve into that with you, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of information to sort through, and
Mm-hmm.
there can be tidbits in there that could make major differences to how you view yourself and how you move
Mm-hmm.
through life. And also, in a sense, it keeps the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us need, okay, so I know my strategy and authority, but how do I use that? We need to engage. We need to engage in a way with that on an ongoing basis so that it becomes something that we're actually putting into practice.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, everybody out there, just to wrap up, thank you, Hartwell, for helping us distinguish between the two. If you guys want to come to a reading, go deeper into either of these, Hartwell is available here at Clair-i-tea to do that with you. I would recommend that you do, if there's one thing that interests you on your chart or whatever, that you do delve into it, because you'll be surprised at how much more information you get through that, as well as combining charts. Like he has a program that combines charts so you can see in a relationship how the two of you tie together and work together, both through astrology and through human design. As well as keep joining us here. Like, subscribe to the Inspired Energy channel or Clair-i-tea's channel, and keep getting these little tidbits and information that can help you. So, with that, I'm going to say God bless. We love you. Hartwell, we'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m. And next week, what we're going to be discussing is what is the value for understanding relationships between people. So this is what I alluded to earlier, right, where you can do the two charts and see how people interact together. What are their strengths and weaknesses, right? That's what we were discussing. Okay.
Yeah.
So join us next week if you want to know more about that topic, and we'll say goodbye. God bless. Love you all.